Commonwealth leaders are due to discuss historic changes to the laws of royal succession at talks in the West Australian city of Perth. The Queen arrived at the summit amid tight security. Leaders are expected to agree to overturn royal succession laws to give daughters equal rights to the throne. Well, BBC's Duncan Kennedy is in Perth and he joins us from there now. Duncan, tell us, why is this change in the law so significant?
Well, it's significant for the 16 countries in the Commonwealth for whom the Queen is the head of state. And the whole idea, the whole theme of this conference in many ways, and that goes towards the royal family as well, is one of modernisation. It's being driven by the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, who thinks really that for males to supersede females in the accession to the throne is just an anachronism in the 21st century, and also doesn't play into the whole theme of the Commonwealth, which is a Commonwealth based on values and human rights. And Mr Cameron made the point on his way here that gender equality is one of the most basic human rights. So he's pushing for these changes that haven't taken place in 300 years. There'll also be changes in who potentially a future monarch can marry. At the moment, they're not allowed to marry Catholics. In future, Mr Cameron and these other leaders want to see that change as well. So it's a package of reforms to bring this institution up to date, and there won't be any great dissent on this. I think there's general agreement that this institution does need to change and bring itself into the 21st century.
Now, you talk of these changes there, but there are a few other issues that are being discussed by leaders as well.
Very much so. The broader themes, if you like, along climate change, sustainable economic development, food security, all those hugely important issues will be discussed. But also there are other more specific issues that could be a little bit more contentious. Things like stopping the criminality of homosexuals. 41 countries out of the 54 countries represented here still have laws banning homosexuals. And there'll be discussions on whether those things should be repealed as well, in that whole spirit of modernising the Commonwealth. But I think the biggest thing they'll be discussing is reform of the Commonwealth itself. And the Queen, in her speech just a few moments ago, made reference to this. She said she was looking forward to her leaders bringing the Commonwealth into a fresh and fit state for tomorrow. The Commonwealth itself has commissioned a report looking at its future, and it's produced a report, a 200-page report, and it's concluded that the Commonwealth is in danger of becoming irrelevant. In a world full of G8, G20s, European unions, like we've had this week with the debt settlement crisis in Europe, the Commonwealth simply doesn't feature. And they say we should get back to the days, for example, where the Commonwealth helped to bring an end to apartheid in South Africa, an end to white rule in what was Rhodesia, putting pressure on people like Idi Amin in Uganda when he was president there. Those days are in the past, and what they want to do is to try and bring the Commonwealth up to date to make it relevant to today's issues, and they hope this report and these speeches and these leaders can go some way forward into bringing this institution back into the 21st century.
We'll talk about that a little later on. Time now, 7:38. For 300 years, daughters of British monarchs have been placed behind their younger brothers in line to the throne. But the Queen has signalled today that she would support a change.
Well, David Cameron today will ask Commonwealth leaders meeting in Australia to amend the rules so that if the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's first child is a girl, then she would be the heir.
The author and former Tory MP Geoffrey Archer tried to change the law back in 1997. He's here with the Mail on Sunday's royal correspondent Katie Nicholl. Very good morning to
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, the subtleties of royal language, I mean, the Queen doesn't say specifically what she thinks in connection with this succession, but the theme of the Commonwealth is about women and the role of women, and she said it's time for bold moves. And that is a clear indication, is it not?
Well, 13 years ago, when I put the bill to the House of Lords, she let it be known that she didn't disapprove of the idea of a woman, if she was the firstborn, becoming the monarch. I just thought it was farcical that if William and Kate have 3 girls in a row and then a boy, the boy leapfrogs over all 3 girls and becomes king. I didn't think in the 21st century this made any sense at all. And she let it be known. She's being a lot firmer this morning. What she said in her speech this morning clearly was, I would like it to happen.
And Katie, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, their wedding, the attention on them, the possibility of a baby, that all throws this into sharp focus, doesn't it?
It's going to be a boy or a girl has a 50-50 chance, and if it's a girl, I think it's only right, and I think public opinion will dictate that it's only right that girl should grow up to be queen one day. And if ever we needed a living proof that a female can do a good job on the throne, well, we have it in Queen Elizabeth II, who marks her 60th year on the throne next year. It's her Diamond Jubilee, and you need to look at her in Perth just for an example of how fantastic she's been.
Well, the whole record over the history of our country. Queen Elizabeth I, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth II. Put up your men.
Might have made things a little easier for Catherine of Aragon, mightn't it?
Yes.
Indeed it would.
I mean, you know, history would have been rewritten.
Oh, yes.
There are significant, as you say, you know, Queen Elizabeth I.
It would have been rewritten, but you can't go back. But what we mustn't have in the future is this situation where women are treated once again as second-rate citizens.
Is there a danger, Katie, though? One of the things that this addresses, and the reason why it's becoming an issue now, is because it's out of date. That idea that the royal family and the idea of succession is out of date. But there's a lot of people who'd say there's a lot of things about the royal family that, frankly, don't add up in the modern world. Frankly, their existence at all, and the fact they live in palaces and drive around expensive cars.
There will always be people that say that, absolutely.
Is it a step in that direction?
Well, I think it is, and, you know, I've written a book about Prince William. One of the things that he's spoken about carefully, but he's still put on the map, is modernisation, which he describes as a strong word in the context of the monarchy, but I think he recognises, and he will recognise when he's king, that the monarchy needs to move forward. And you know what? I think the Queen's done that as well. We have a Queen who pays taxes. We have a Queen who has an interest in renewable energy. Yes, people will always argue that there are elements of the monarchy that are antiquated, but I think they've proved over the years that they can move with modern times, and this is one way of doing it.
One of the other things that would change is that there would be an allowance to marry someone who is Roman Catholic. Now, the monarch is head of the Church of England. So you would have a prospect then of somebody who is the next monarch being a Roman Catholic head of the Anglican Church.
That doesn't worry me either, but it's always annoyed me that people have coupled these two together. They're two, in my view, they're two totally separate issues. A woman becoming queen because she's the firstborn is one issue. Whether we can have a Roman Catholic is another issue. And I've been fighting one cause. There are several others.
This goes back, I suppose, to Charlie's question about, does it open lots of other questions which then get yoked to this very straightforward question, which make it more complicated?
If you say that, what happens in the end, you never reform anything. You never do anything in life. Yes, there are people saying, Geoffrey, don't tinker with the Constitution. Geoffrey, leave it as it is. Fine. We would never have moved forward, ever, with rules like that. No. I have been fighting for 13 years that when Prince William married, and he's now married, and hasn't he done well, if she produces a girl first, she should be queen. End of discussion.
Can I just run through how it's interesting to see how the lineup would change. I mean, if the rules applied now, how the lineup would change in terms of the succession. Okay, so as it stands now,
Princess Anne,
Prince of Wales, #1, then Prince William, Prince Harry, Duke of York, then Princess Beatrice and Eugenie, 5 and 6. So you go down to how it would be, and you have Prince of Wales, Prince William, and Prince Henry. Then it's the Princess Royal, who goes from #10. Up to #5, up to #4, and Zara Phillips goes to #6. How it would be, she would be #6 in line to succession.
It's pretty rare to get the 6th in line.
It's all fairly academic.
It will change history, and you know, back to your point, because I thought you made an interesting point about the whole religious affair, and you're right, they are two different affairs, this issue of Catholicism. But you picked up Zara Phillips. Look at her brother. I mean, Autumn Phillips had to renounce her Catholicism in order to marry into the family. What would we have done if Kate Middleton had been a Catholic? Would that mean that Prince William wouldn't have been able to marry her? So I actually don't think that should just be pushed aside. I think it's an important part of reform that needs to take place. And it won't mean that the Church of England has to stop being the Church of England. It will still be the Church of the establishment. It will just mean that Prince Michael of Kent, who renounced his position in line of the throne in order to marry Mary Christine, would still actually be in line to the throne. As far down as it might be, he'd still be there.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Lord Archer, there are lots of issues that some people might initially think, that sounds great and sensible, but as you say, already people saying, don't meddle. This is hundreds of years of history.
Yes.
And this is quite radical change when you're talking about the royal family.
I say to them, I repeat, Queen Elizabeth I, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth II, this is worth changing for. And in any case, we're in the 21st century. Do we have the right? We all claim we believe in equal rights. We all say that's what we believe in. We're going to have 3 daughters and then a boy and let him leapfrog over the 3 girls.
I think you'd have a constitutional crisis if you did that. And I think David Cameron is very aware of that. I think that's why he's very keen to address it now. And actually, had it been 13 years ago and it sort of first came up and Lord Archer was campaigning for this, things would be different. But you think this will be...
Well, no one would care if
we'd
done it 13 years ago.
No one would care. But this way, Kate could be the woman who changes royal history.
Lovely to talk to you both. Thanks very much indeed, Kate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Britain is to change its laws on royal succession. In future, women in the royal family will have the same right to succeed to the throne as men. The decision was made by the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Perth, where David Cameron announced what it entailed.
Attitudes have changed fundamentally over the centuries, and some outdated rules, like some of the rules on succession, just don't make sense to us anymore. The idea that a younger son should become monarch instead of an elder daughter simply because he's a man, or that a future monarch can marry someone of any faith except a Catholic. This way of thinking is at odds with the modern countries that we've all become. People have been talking about changing the rules for some time, but when there are 16 countries sharing the same head of state and each have their own constitutional, legal and political concerns, it's absolutely right that we should all discuss this together. That's why I asked Prime Minister Gillard for the opportunity to chair this meeting today with the heads of government from all 16 nations. And I'm very pleased to say that we've reached a unanimous agreement on 2 changes to the rules of succession. First, we will end the male primogeniture rule so that in future the order of succession should be determined simply by the order of birth. And we've agreed to introduce this for all descendants from the Prince of Wales. Put simply, if the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge were to have a little girl, that girl would one day be our Queen. Second, we've agreed to scrap the rule which says that no one who marries a Roman Catholic can become monarch. Let me be clear, the monarch must be in communion with the Church of England because he or she is the head of that church. But it is simply wrong that they should be denied the chance to marry a Catholic if they wish to do so. After all, they're already quite free to marry someone of any other faith. We agreed today that this has to change. Across the 16 realms, we'll now work together through an international group and within each country to bring forward the necessary measures to implement these changes at the same time. For historic reasons, the UK needs to publish its legislation first, and we'll make sure that what we bring forward is acceptable to all countries. Of course, Her Majesty will play her normal role in any legislation. Her Private Secretary, Sir Christopher Geit, was present at this meeting, and we will now advise Her Majesty of this unanimous agreement.
Well, that was David Cameron speaking a little earlier. We can go live now to our correspondent Duncan Kennedy, who's in Perth for us. And Duncan, just explain where we are now and just how difficult this will be to actually push through.
Well, where we are is that the Commonwealth leaders have agreed to push these changes through. That's what Mr Cameron has come here to Western Australia for. Next step is legislation to make it happen. And it will be the British that take the lead in that. And then all the other countries, including Australia, who've said today that they are behind these moves, they'll change their laws as well. So expect legislation to be put before the House of Commons in the next few months. It has cross-party support in Britain, so it should sail through there as well. 2 major changes, just to recap on that. First of all, males won't get precedence in future over females in terms of succession. So if, as Mr Cameron said, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, William and Kate, were to have a girl, then she would become Queen in the fullness of time. And also he said they were going to scrap the law whereby future monarchs couldn't marry Catholics. In future, they are to be able to do that as well. So sweeping away, really, in just a couple of sentences, 300 years of British history, Mr Cameron said it was all about modernisation, taking Britain forward.
And as you say, Duncan, just in a couple of sentences, and yet we've been told that the reason this has taken so long is because it's a hugely complex thing to do.
It is complex because there are many laws in Britain alone, let alone the other 16 realms where the Queen has governance, to repeal and to change. So there are lots of legal technicalities to go through. They've got to phrase it correctly. They've got to get the wording correct. So there are issues to be gone through. That's why it's taken part of the time. But also, I think it's been given fresh impetus by the arrival on the scene of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, Kate and William. They have changed in many ways the dynamics of the monarchy, if you like. And Mr. Cameron and indeed the other Commonwealth leaders are keen to capitalise on that. They see that this young couple are the future of the monarchy, even though the Queen is here and still very popular, and changes need to be made to accommodate that modern potential family that comes along. So yes, it's not an easy legislative change, but it is one now that will go forward.
And how far will it go to changing the dynamics of the Commonwealth, do you think? Because there have been reports in recent years suggesting that perhaps it's losing its relevance in the modern world.
Well, it depends who you speak to. I mean, you've come to the right country to have that debate, because here there are a sizable number, a minority number of people who class themselves as Republicans, and many of them would say all this is completely irrelevant to a modern, thrusting, independent country like Australia. It's kind of irrelevant for them. But there are plenty of others here, and the opinion saying that they like their ties, they appreciate their ties to Britain and to the monarchy, and therefore these kinds of changes are important to those people. Just one opinion poll published before the Queen arrived here a week ago showing that 55% of people were in favour of the monarchy and only 34% in favour of a republic. That's a 23-year low for Republicans here. So very much at the moment the monarchy is still popular in places like Australia, Canada and elsewhere, and Mr. Cameron is recognising that by trying to modernise the institution and take it forward into the 21st century.
OK, Duncan Kennedy, thank you very much.